Dear Professor Mary Davis, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. So, violence against women is increasing under the Erdogan regime in Turkey. How does that concern you? And do you think UK government should use the international influence to encourage the Turkish regime to end its dangerous rhetoric and fully implement the Istanbul Convention?
Well, I think violence against women is really increasing all over the world, actually, including in this country. Um, but Turkey does present the most extreme case in Europe at the moment. And the threat of Turkey withdrawing from the Istanbul Convention, which deals with gender-based violence, not just femicide, um, all forms of gender-based violence, is clearly a provocation, but it's something that is likely to happen. The Polish government, which is a similarly authoritarian, reactionary, and populist nationalist government, bordering on a fascist government, actually, has already withdrawn from the Istanbul Convention. The British government has not got a good record itself. It's not as bad as Turkey, and we're not seeing the kind of absolute brutal violence that, for example, I know that in Turkey, 474 women were actually killed, were victims of femicide last year. So asking the British government to put pressure on the Turkish government is something that we in this country have been trying to do for an awful long time, not just on the question of femicide, but also on the question of Turkey's absolute violation of all forms of human rights, but political abuse against its opposition. And as we know, the imprisonment of all political opposition, of civil servants, of teachers. The record of the Erdogan government is known to all, but this government is not going to condemn it because it's got military and political links with the Turkish government, which it's anxious to preserve. So I don't hold out we must put pressure on this government, but I don't hold out very many hopes for really a reactionary right-wing government distancing itself from an equally and even more right-wing government, as is the AKP government in Turkey.
Thank you. So, femicide rate in Turkey resembles a war record, especially Turkey's state approach to women is not acceptable by many others in Europe. What is your solidarity message to women workers, politicians, and your sisters in Turkey?
Well, of course, we have to show solidarity, but it's as I say, I think it's a part of a movement that all women have to recognise that gender-based violence against women, domestic violence, and femicide is endemic in capitalist society. Patriarchal notions of where women's place is very much a part of our lived experience as all women in all capitalist societies. Capitalism is founded on the oppression of women. What we're seeing in Turkey is one of the most extreme forms of this. So our solidarity isn't just to say we feel sorry for Turkish women. That's not it. The issue, I think, is to ensure that women unite and can see and expose this kind of violence and this kind of misogyny, which is at the root of it all. The Turkish government is so overt in this. I think Erdogan said that the Istanbul Convention is antithetical to Turkish family values. Well, we have to question what family values mean. And if that means the oppression of women, which it does in capitalist society, then our message, of course, is solidarity to all women who are fighting against those patriarchal notions of not notions, but that patriarchal ideology which oppresses women within the home and within society in general.
On the other side of Turkey's border in Syria, a Kurdish women's revolution has taken place with the ideas of Mr. Öcalan. Do you think Öcalan's freedom from the Turkish island prison on Imralı will have the similar positive impacts for women in Turkey?
Well, of course, we must campaign for the freedom of Abdullah Öcalan, but of course, his ideas have already inspired a very vibrant Kurdish women's movement, and and in Syria, and of course in Turkey itself. I myself have visited Kurdistan and saw the peace mothers, went to in Van, and I mean it's remarkable the progress that within the Kurdish movement for change that women have made, and Erdogan's ideas on women, I think, are exceptional. He is the first, well, the first man, I think, since Engels who has really written about women's oppression, and it's unusual for a man to have a grasp of how important the women's revolution is, or to see that it's important. And the result of that has been the rise, as I see it, of many, many, many hundreds of absolutely exceptional women leaders, women theoreticians, women in the forefront of the struggle in Syria, and in all areas of Kurdistan. I think it's his freedom obviously is essential, but his ideas are already having an impact.
You have published a number of books about women's and labor movement in UK. So the Comrade or Brother, a history of the British labor movement came out. Could you please briefly tell us about the book?
Well, it's in its, I think, third or fourth edition. The latest thing I've written is a book on women and class. The essence of what I've tried to do in Comrade or Brother, which is a history of the British labour movement written for the labour movement, is to try to integrate what we know about women into contextualise it. In other words, not to have women's history separate from labour history, but to look at how the movement developed. Men and women. It's called Comrade or Brother because when the movement was class conscious and progressive, then women were allowed, if you like, in inverted commas, to play a part. And when it wasn't, it was a male movement and only celebrated brotherhood. Comradeship, I think, encompasses men and women as equals. The point about writing labour history is that you cannot write any history without looking at half the human race, i.e. women. In fact, in Britain, women were the first factory workers. They were actually the first trade unionists. They were systematically excluded as capitalist ideology really decreed that somehow or other men were earning a family wage and women should be kept at home. They never were. Women have always worked, and they do in Turkey as well, and they do in almost all European countries, but in segregated areas of employment which are underpaid and doubly exploited. Women are oppressed, but their oppression is based on class exploitation, and class exploitation, of course, benefits capitalism. That's what it's all about.
Does the Kurdish woman movement inspiring European woman
Oh, I think so,
movement?
definitely, because what we're seeing is the breakthrough of women leaders who haven't just been incorporated into the system. We've got this notion here that somehow or other, if some women break through the glass ceiling, we've had 2 women prime ministers, that somehow that means that women have come, that women are doing well. Well, they're not. I mean, the gender pay gap in this country is higher than almost any other country. There's all sorts of other things. But what I think is happening in Turkey is that working class women are coming to the fore. These aren't just the privileged few. It's not a glass ceiling thing. The glass ceiling is the notion that somehow or other that a few women can escape, but they're mainly women who are fairly well-to-do women, but they pull up the ladder behind them so that other women can't climb on it. And we're not seeing any really material progress for the vast mass of working class women in this country. And in Turkey, what I think that is happening is that a lot of women are coming forward in the struggle to change things. They're not just wanting to incorporate and to kind of adapt within the existing system. These are women who are trying to change society. And that's the difference, I think. And I see a lot of that. I think there's a lot of absolutely, and it's inspirational actually. And women in the forefront of struggle, including even in the arms struggle.
Dear Professor Mary Davis, thanks for joining us today and thanks for your comments.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.